Television has been around a long time, and many people have always wondered that what the possible risks of violence being viewed each day could bring to the world, and especially our kids. Since of recent, the study on the effects of media violence has been ever increasing as violent attacks in our streets and mass murders in other countries, especially American schools, have dramatically increased since the media has become almost certain factor in our day-to-day lives. With the average child watching 3 to 4 hours of television a day. Over the last 30 years, there has been extensive research into to try and figure out the relationship between media violence and real life behavior. As the studies on media violence try to look at the correlations between media violence in video games, television, and movies, and how this ultimately links back to violence in our real world. In 2013, a study on the extensive and persistence of aggressive media exposure as a longitude risk factor for teen dating violence from Freelander, Connolly, Pepler, and Craig looked to determine whether adolescents' use of aggressive media is a risk for dating violence. In this study, they used 238 teenage boys and 246 teenage girls who were all in relationships. They met once a year over a 3-year period to complete a measure of media aggression tests and a dating tolerance attitude test. The results they found did illustrate that exposure to extensive media violence over a prolonged period of time does lead to an increase in aggression and ultimately lead to violence, victimization, and or harmful illegal crimes. They believe that the results found were down to the attitudes that the adolescents had about violence in general, and that it was not only from watching media violence, but from the overall life they've lived and the things they've experienced. However, in this study, there were some limitations. The method of meeting once a year over a 3-year period leaves room for participants to lie about the amount of media violence they had watched over that time. Um, this can lead to extraneous variables in the study, which can result in the findings being inconsistent due to the participants obviously lying and therefore guessing on the media aggression and dating tolerance attitude tests. Another limitation in this study is the adolescent lifestyle. Some have grown up obviously in different areas, some have been exposed to different things as a child, and therefore some have grown up in a harder lifestyle. So therefore they could have more be more tolerant to like aggression than others. They might respond worse to different situations than others. They might act more violent when seeing something or hearing something than people who have grown up in a friendly area where they haven't been possibly exposed to that much violence. However, these variables can be improved for future research by keeping participants in an enclosed area or artificial lab or like some place where they can where the researchers can control how much the participants do view of media violence to make sure that there is no lying. So they make sure that a set amount of media violence has been seen by each participant. This also allows for the research to watch the adolescent's growth over the 3-year period. Picking participants from different areas so that people that have grown up in worse areas than others, their characteristics of more aggressive will more or less be cancelled out by those who haven't seen so much violence in their lifestyle, and therefore the research study should just get the main rough estimate of people who have seen half and half and so forth. The last limitation this study had was they never backed up the results by doing another test to prove that these test results they found from this study were right. They should have done another, or possibly done another test to demonstrate that the results they found were in fact correct. They could have done this by allowing participants to play a violent video game and record the levels of aggression they have to the computer generated game, or allowed them to play a sport in which they could record the amount of aggressive behavior to other children or adolescents playing the sport. So that would more or less um, back up the results they've found, um, and would give a more in-depth view on the research and would prove the results were reliable. I chose this study over other research studies due to its research design and lack of extraneous variables compared to the other articles, obviously, I've read. Other studies contained many limitations and ultimately affected their research study. However, in this study, the population of 238 boys and 246 girls, with a mean average of 15.06, can be judged to the population of adolescents due to the amount of participants in and their different age, gender, and socio-economical status. The other papers lacked this, with numbers and equality being only minor amount compared to this study, especially the RAM spot study, which only included 16 participants under the age of 12. Now, RAM spots participants hadn't fully matured yet, and therefore their ability to accurately judge their aggression levels after watching media violence couldn't be an accurate correlation to all the other studies out there. They also lacked efficiency and clear conclusions of the results they found. This study by Freelander, Connolly, Pepler, and Craig illustrated a clear vision from the start of what they wanted to find and how they were going to do it. They made sure through various procedures that the results they found could be generalized to the adolescent population and therefore were the reliable set of results. Overall, this study on the extensiveness and persistency of aggressive media exposure as longitude risk factors for teen dating violence has demonstrated that aggression levels do rise over a period in which prolonged media violence has been visualized. However, must keep into account the possible expectations of participants in it, and that obviously it's not all to do with just media violence, it's also how people have grown up and what they've experienced.